Hi everyone, welcome to Dr. Obi's garden. In this video, I'll show you how to grow your own ginger at home in containers to get a bountiful harvest. I'll share a technique I use to give my plants a fast start and provide 4 bonus tips to guarantee success at the end of this video, so stick with me as I break things down. Unlike many other crops, ginger is not grown from seed but rather from a piece of the rhizome, sometimes referred to as the ginger root. But you will see later that the root is very different from the rhizome, which is basically an underground stem. Start by selecting the right ginger rhizomes for planting. Look out for ones that have intact buds or ones that show signs of sprouting. Once you have the right rhizomes, you can plant them in the soil right away, but I prefer to sprout my rhizome before planting. This gets them to a faster start and an early harvest. I do this by placing the rhizomes in an opaque plastic bag. I moisten it lightly, tie it up and keep it on the kitchen counter for about a week. You can also leave the rhizome on the counter without covering it, but it may take longer to sprout and rhizomes will begin to shrivel up. After about a week, the most active bud would have sprouted and will be ready to plant in its permanent spot. This step can be started at any time if you live in a tropical climate, because of course ginger is a tropical plant. But if you live in a temperate climate, you can start it early in spring since it can be done indoors. To plant, you need a container that is wide rather than deep, since ginger rhizomes grow horizontally. The container should have holes at the bottom to allow for drainage and be filled with loose, well-draining, rich soil. I use garden soil, but you can also use commercially available potting mix. Water the soil thoroughly and allow excess water to drain out. Press the sprouted ginger rhizomes into the soil to about an inch deep, making sure that the sprouts are pointing up and out of the soil. You can space rhizomes about 6 inches apart. An 18-inch wide container can easily take 4 rhizomes. Cover with soil and water lightly. Keep the plant in partial shade for a couple of weeks. After about 2 weeks, the ginger shoots would have turned green and grown a little longer. New shoots could also begin to emerge. You can add a couple handfuls of poultry manure or compost and stir it in. You have to move it to a full sun location where it can receive about 5 hours of sunlight. Don't worry if your plant gets a lot of sunlight, so long as you keep the soil moist, the plant will be fine. More about the sunlight requirements of ginger later. You have to remove the weeds as and when necessary to avoid competition for nutrients. If the soil gets too compact, you have to stir it a little bit to allow the rhizomes to expand. Don't put the hand fork too deeply, especially around the ginger shoots, in order not to injure the developing rhizomes. Stir in a few handfuls of poultry manure or compost every 2 months. Since some ginger rhizomes will grow upwards, doing this ensures that the rhizomes are not overly exposed. Make sure to water the plants after every fertilizer application. After about 7 months, you can start to harvest young ginger plants for use. You should first harvest those rhizomes that are at the side of the container, since these will have restricted growth. You can harvest by pulling at the shoots. If the soil is a bit dry, you have to water before harvesting. A knife will be handy for this operation. Wash the rhizome thoroughly after harvesting. These baby ginger rhizomes have a milder taste and don't have to be peeled before eating. The fresh leaves and stem can also be used to make ginger tea. Aside using it as food, I have another use for these baby ginger rhizomes, and you will see that shortly. After harvesting, you have to stir in more compost to provide nutrients for the developing rhizomes. As indicated earlier, I have another purpose for the baby gingers, and that is using them as planting materials so I can have a constant supply of ginger in the house. You can plant them in containers or directly in the ground as I have done. I'll provide an update on these at the end of this video. Ginger plants may produce flowers during production, but these don't have any significant impact on rhizome development. Don't worry if yours does or doesn't flower. You know the ginger rhizomes are ready to be harvested when the plants begin to dry up and die back. This can take between 8 to 10 months depending on variety and location. Watering the soil before harvesting can make it easy to pull out the whole clump. The real ginger roots will be at the bottom, but the edible rhizomes will be found close to the soil surface. You have to break up the soil to get to them. Once you isolate the rhizomes, you can cut off the shoot before washing them. You can also replant the young ones in another container or directly in the ground, as shown previously. After washing, leave the ginger to cure for about 2 to 3 days in a dry, airy place before storing. If you have more ginger than you can use, you can blend some of this, portion it and store it in the freezer. They can last up to about a year this way. Here are some important bonus tips to guarantee success. Number 1. The size of ginger rhizomes depend on the variety as well as soil nutrients. If you want very big ginger, start by selecting the right variety. But you need to provide supplemental nutrients to support full rhizome development. Number 2. Make sure to keep the soil moist. Too much water promotes rot, whereas too little causes the leaf to turn brown and die. Ginger normally prefers a warm, humid environment. If the soil dries quickly and you cannot keep up with watering, applying a layer of mulch can help retain moisture and control weeds. 3. Ginger varieties do not like prolonged exposure to bright sunlight. If you see many leaf margins drying out, then you may have to move the plants into a partially shaded area. A good location will be part of the garden that is shaded by a tree for about half of the day. Number 4. Be sure to select healthy rhizomes or roots for planting, since diseases of ginger plants can be spread through the rhizomes. Avoid rhizome that has any signs of rot. As promised, this is how the ginger plants that were planted in the ground from the baby ginger look after 5 months. They will be ready for harvest after a couple months to continue the cycle. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button to show your approval. Thanks for watching.